Have you ever laid in bed, eyes wide open, not from fear or pain, but from something unspoken tugging at your soul? Some nights refuse to let us sleep. Those hours when everything is silent but inside something stirs. It feels like waiting for a voice that hasn't spoken yet, like the air is heavy with meaning. Tonight, I want to tell you about a boy who couldn't sleep, not because he was afraid but because God was near. It was a holy insomnia, a moment when the divine chose to speak through the darkness. Because sometimes, what feels like restlessness is actually readiness. When our bodies are still but our spirits are alert, heaven leans in close. This is not just a Bible story, it's a mirror reflecting the way God still moves in our sleepless hours. Stay with me for a few minutes. Let's walk into the night where young Samuel heard his name for the first time. And maybe, just maybe, you'll realize that what's keeping you awake is also calling you deeper. Welcome to Midnight Psalms, where we believe the night holds sacred whispers. Here we dive into stories where silence speaks, where shadows carry light, and where God visits hearts that are still awake. Whether it's anxiety, heartbreak, or just that strange stillness that won't let you sleep, we're here. This channel isn't for noise, it's for depth. It's not about entertainment, it's about encounter. So if you've been searching for a space to breathe, to cry, to listen, you've just found it. Grab your blanket, dim the lights, and let this be your sanctuary tonight. We're not here to rush, we're here to rest in revelation. The night doesn't have to be lonely if you know who walks in it with you. Now, let's meet a boy who didn't even know he was being called by name. Samuel was just a boy when he was first entrusted to the house of God. Raised not by his mother but under the care of Eli, a priest who had long grown tired and dim. The tabernacle was quiet at night, lit only by a small flame that hadn't yet gone out. And there, in that in-between space, between boyhood and calling, between silence and sound, God whispered. But Samuel didn't recognize the voice. How could he? He had never heard it before. Like many of us, he thought it was something ordinary, something human, something explainable. He ran to Eli, confused but obedient, not knowing he was stepping into a holy conversation. Sometimes, God speaks so gently that we think it's just our own thoughts. We second-guess, we dismiss it, we assume it's nothing. But what if that stirring you feel is actually God whispering your name? The first time Samuel heard his name, he ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." But Eli, unaware of heaven's nearness, told him to go back to bed. It happened again and again. 3 times the boy heard the same voice, the same name, the same invitation. And 3 times he returned, faithfully reporting to a man who no longer heard God the way he once did. It took Eli a while, but eventually even he remembered the sound of divine interruption. He realized it wasn't a child imagining things, but the beginning of something sacred. And he gave Samuel the words that would unlock a lifetime of purpose. Say, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." What if the person you go to for answers can't hear what God is speaking to you? Sometimes the best they can do is point you back to God, and that's more than enough. That final time when the voice came again, Samuel stayed still. He didn't run. He didn't question. He simply responded, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." And in that quiet moment, something shifted forever. A boy became a prophet. A whisper became a word. A restless night became a revelation. God spoke, not to the experienced, not to the powerful, but to a child who was willing to listen. And maybe God still chooses the willing over the wise, the awake over the accomplished. How many nights have you tossed and turned, assuming your sleeplessness was a problem to fix? What if it's a portal to hear? God doesn't always shout. He often comes wrapped in quiet, disguised as discomfort. Your racing thoughts might be holy invitations. Your inability to sleep might be the Spirit stirring. You don't need a title to be called. You just need ears that are open. What if tonight isn't about rest but about response? What if you simply say, "Speak, Lord," and mean it? There's something beautiful about being called in the dark. No spotlight, no applause, no crowd. Just you and the stillness, and the sound of your name echoing from somewhere eternal. Samuel's story isn't just about hearing God, it's about learning to recognize Him. That's a process. It starts with confusion, then grows into awareness, and finally becomes friendship. God isn't trying to confuse you. He's drawing you closer until you learn the tone of His voice. And when you do, even your nights won't be wasted anymore. The Bible says, "The lamp of God had not yet gone out." That one line tells us everything. Even when the world feels dim, even when leaders fail, even when clarity is hard to find, His light is still burning. God doesn't give up on generations. He plants voices in the dark. He places callings in the quiet. And even when it feels like He's been silent for years, He speaks again. Your night might feel long, but the flame hasn't gone out, and neither has your purpose. Sometimes all we need is permission to believe He's really speaking to us, that it's not just for pastors or prophets or perfect people. Samuel wasn't special because of his achievements. He was available. He showed up. He listened. He responded. And that's all God is asking from you tonight. Not perfection, just presence. Not knowledge, just a heart that says, "Here I am." Even if you don't understand it yet, you're already being called. So what now? Maybe you don't feel ready. Maybe you're unsure if it was really Him. But the night is still young and the voice is still near. Maybe it's time to stop running to everyone else and finally respond to the one who keeps calling. This is holy ground, even if it looks like your bedroom floor. This is sacred time, even if it's 2 a.m. Don't waste this insomnia. Invite Him into it, and whisper back the words that change everything. "Speak, Lord, for I'm listening." There's something deeply sacred about responding to God before you even understand the full message. Samuel didn't receive a clear vision that night. He received proximity. God was near, and that was enough. The call wasn't about instruction, it was about intimacy. And sometimes, we miss what God is doing because we're waiting for a mission when He's offering a moment. We want a big breakthrough. He wants a quiet yes. We want direction. He wants connection. What if the real miracle tonight isn't clarity, but closeness? Think about this. The voice didn't change, but Samuel did. The voice called him 4 times, but it was only on the 4th that he recognized it. God's voice doesn't get louder, our ears get softer. He's not trying to overpower you, He's training your attention. You're not being ignored, you're being invited to tune in, to slow down, to let the noise settle so the whisper can rise. That's what insomnia is sometimes, an involuntary Sabbath, a space to let your soul catch up to your spirit. Samuel's first assignment wasn't easy. The message God gave him was a heavy one. It involved judgment on Eli's house. That's a lot to carry for a child. But purpose doesn't wait for comfort. And God's call doesn't always feel nice. Sometimes it's weighty, real, urgent. Yet Samuel received it with humility. He delivered the word. And in doing so, he stepped into his identity. From that moment forward, he became a trusted voice in Israel. It all started with a whisper in the dark. You may not feel ready to carry anything. Maybe you're too tired, too confused, too broken. But God isn't asking for your strength. He's asking for your surrender. He's not looking for someone flawless. He's looking for someone listening. And the fact that you're still awake, still searching, still here, that says something. You may feel unworthy, but your worth was never the requirement, your availability is. So what if this night was chosen on purpose? Let's go deeper now because there's more. Samuel's name literally means, God has heard. But that night it was Samuel who did the hearing. It's a holy exchange. God hears us, and then teaches us how to hear Him. It's not a one-way street. It's a dialogue, a friendship, a rhythm. And once you enter into it, sleep may not always be your first need anymore. Because suddenly, hearing His voice becomes more satisfying than rest, more vital than routine, more healing than a full night's sleep. So how do you know if it's really Him? The voice of God always carries peace, even when it brings conviction. It never shames, it draws. It doesn't confuse, it clarifies. And it always invites relationship, not religion. If what you're hearing leads you closer to Him, it's likely Him. And if you're unsure, He's patient enough to repeat Himself until you recognize the sound. Samuel needed 4 calls. God didn't get frustrated, He just kept calling. And He'll do the same for you. I wonder what would change if we stopped fighting the night. What if, instead of trying to silence the ache, we leaned into it with expectation? You're not cursed with insomnia, you're blessed with invitation. You're not broken, you're being awakened. God has always spoken in the night. To Joseph in dreams, to Jacob in wrestling, to Samuel in stillness. Why not to you? Don't underestimate what He can do in the dark. You're not alone here. You're not forgotten. You're not imagining things. You're being called. Tonight may feel ordinary, but eternity is leaning in. You're not too young, too old, too late. You're right on time for what God is doing. All He needs is your response. So don't run to Eli anymore. Don't dismiss the voice. Let this moment be sacred. Let this night be the one where everything began to shift. Because when Samuel said, "Speak, Lord," history was rewritten. And when you say it, your story will be too. Right now, you're standing on holy ground. So here's your quiet challenge. The next time sleep evades you, don't scroll, listen. Don't numb, lean in. Open your Bible, whisper a prayer, or simply be still. You don't need fancy words. You just need to be present. Because God's not looking for performance, He's looking for presence. He's not impressed by noise, He's moved by nearness. And in your silence He still speaks. He always has. You just have to say, "Here I am." If this message found you tonight, it's not by accident. Maybe God used this video to confirm what your soul already knew. Maybe this is your 4th time hearing the call. Or maybe it's the 1st. But the flame hasn't gone out. And your name is still echoing through heaven. So slow your breath. Close your eyes. And let your spirit whisper what Samuel once did. "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." You're not alone in this night, He's already here. Dove, if this spoke to you, subscribe to Midnight Psalms and share with someone who can't sleep tonight. Let's turn restless nights into sacred moments.